record this. So let's see, South Carolina, Cleveland, Philly, Florida, Toronto. Oh my God, now I know. You just saved me so much embarrassment. So I've always wanted to visit Toronto. Maybe I'll let you know when I come up and visit and take a nice tax-deductible trip up there. So welcome, everyone. Music's distracting me, so hang on a sec. Alexa, volume 1. Okay, so I'm really, really excited to be able to do this with you guys. I can't do these webinars all the time, but whenever I am able to set aside a date, this has been in the works for, I think, 2 months now. So I really, really appreciate all you guys taking time out of your day to be on here. It shows me that there is room for help in this area, and it's my #1 favorite thing to do. So hello, welcome to everybody who's hopping on. Just tell us where you're tuning in from, and we'll get started. There's a chat feature there. If at any point you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to add it in the chat. And at the end, when I do a Q&A, I will definitely scroll back through and try to make sure I answer every single one of them. So, and those of you who don't know, my name is Michelle Amato. I am Girl with the Fake Red Hair on Instagram, and I also run Chronic Confidence Academy, which is my private mentoring program for women with hormonal imbalance, whether it be thyroid, PCOS, ovarian-based, or both, which is very common. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that. A little bit about me. I've first started with type 1 diabetes. That was my first diagnosis when I was about 7 years old. And shortly after, followed Hashimoto's and then PCOS. And I've been, I don't want to say battling, but balancing all of that for pretty much my whole life. So I was a chubby kid. Needless to say, I was a chubby kid. I grew up sick, and I think worse than growing up sick was I grew up frustrated because, I know a lot of you can relate to this, as I've heard, and that's people don't take heavy women seriously, I find. And that's what I found throughout my entire life. It made it really hard to even want to keep looking for answers or looking for help when everywhere I faced, I felt like I was being blamed for it. And it's particularly frustrating when you're being blamed for something that you don't even know you're doing, So it was definitely tough. I grew up, people are definitely not kind. If you see any of you guys who are in here, it probably is because you related to something that I wrote on Instagram. I try to be as real and raw as possible because, yeah, you can find a million accounts that can tell you about different seeds to eat and like different, don't have dairy, have protein, don't have too much protein. There's tons out there, but I found that there was a real void in this community when it came to just talking about the real stuff and, just commiserating almost and being real about, look, we only get one body. So if it's a crappy body to us, like we got to do the best with what we got. And I didn't learn that lesson until I was in my 20s. I was really, really down and out. I was the heaviest I had ever been. I had periods of time where I wouldn't even eat and I still wouldn't lose weight. I lived on my own at a pretty early age. I didn't have a lot of money at all. And it actually came down to choosing between food and gas to get to work, or food and insulin for my diabetes, and it was really, really hard. And I think more so than that situation bothering me, I was the most bothered that I still didn't lose freaking weight. I was like, at the very least, if I'm going to be on the freaking poverty diet, like, can I get a couple pounds, please? That's where my thought process was. It was really ass backwards. But who blames us? We're always kind of, we feel like crap. We don't feel in control of our bodies. We don't like the bodies we're in, and yet we're to blame, So it's, who would blame us for feeling that way? It wasn't until I realized that my health was going to be what it was. My body was going to be what it was. These illnesses were not curable, but that doesn't mean that my time here on earth had to be absolutely miserable. So I decided to start diving into learning to love the body I was in after hating it for so long and resenting it for failing me, which was definitely a tough journey. Through that, I decided, I made a pact with myself to stop caring about my weight, which freaks people out when they hear it. But I'm going to be real with you guys. In my opinion, that's just fat phobia dressed up. Because if you think that just because you're not obsessed with losing weight because you're a heavy person, that is enabling obesity or any of the other stuff we see online, we're going to start to believe that, guys. We're going to start to believe we can't be happy unless we're a certain size or a certain look. And I just decided, if I am going to look like this for the rest of my life, why am I going to also be miserable on top of it? So in doing that, I decided to start looking into different foods and how they affected my body. I did my own elimination diet, which is, again, just more disordered eating, but provided a lot of really big insight. I cooked more than I ever had in my life to figure out a way to do this and not have it be another full-time job. I still wanted to eat delicious foods, which we're going to get into, but I wanted to make sure that I felt better. I realized that when I let go of the weight loss being the most important thing, that I still cared that it was hard to get out of bed in the morning. My joints felt so swollen and stiff all the time. I felt like I was 80 years old. I had 2 hairs on my friggin' head, but plenty of hair everywhere else. It wasn't just the weight. So, and this is from someone who had spent decades of their life obsessing about the weight. So once that happened and I figured out, which I'm going to dive into with you guys today, but once I figured out how my body felt best and how I could make it a realistic part of my life, I honestly was like, the weight comes off, the weight comes off. About 6 months later, 6 months, I finally, someone says to me, have you lost weight? And it was like the angels singing, because I swear to God, I had not heard that before ever. So I was like, I don't know. Have I? Because it's hard to get rid of that little part of you that just really wants that, and I did. I had lost 15 pounds. And I think what the most shocking thing to me was that I went 6 months without weighing myself and that I had actually seen a difference in my body. And on top of that, to see that difference for the first time without obsessing about it was just massive to me. And I was hooked. I was hooked on the concept of not giving a shit about what the scale says, because I felt better. My hair was growing back. I started feeling like going out again. I started feeling like, I don't know, speaking in public again, and just being myself and feeling like I was allowed to, if that makes sense, and it continued. I felt better and better. I had to keep lowering my thyroid dose, which was all the way up at, I think it was 275 micrograms at one point for my hashis in here who are on Levoxyl. And we lowered it all the way down to 75. I was continuing to lose weight, but it was slow. It still took me about 2 years-ish to lose, but I lost 80 pounds. So for me, like, I was elated, and that's it. There's no other way for me now. I don't obsess on the scale. I don't go and weigh myself a ton. I really rarely weigh myself. And I've been able to maintain, and I think I've lost more. I don't know. I haven't checked, but I've been able to maintain at the very least what I've done for about 1.5 years now. And that is the big part. Maybe some of you guys in here have lost weight before and then gained it back and then some. Or maybe you're gaining it back and it's terrifying you. For me, it was not the ability to lose the weight so much as the ability to make it a forever thing and actually feel like I'm proud of the body that I have, not on looks, but on the fact that I made it happen. I made a change happen, which is something that felt completely impossible before. So who's relating to this as I'm telling you? Go ahead and tell me in the chat what's touching home for you. I'm a big feedback queen, by the way. So I love getting feedback from you guys as I'm saying this stuff. So definitely, what is touching home? What's connecting with you guys? Oh, I didn't even know you can do reactions on Zoom. That's awesome. I love that. So let's start with this. I'm not gonna go into a ton of detail about what PCOS and what Hashimoto's is. For the majority of you guys have been battling this for a long time. I'm going to give you, the long and short of it, and then we're going to jump into kind of the problems that we see that prevent us from losing weight. So Hashimoto's, people a lot of times confuse Hashimoto's with hypothyroidism. So the thing is, pretty much everybody with Hashimoto's has hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is slow thyroid production or reduced thyroid absorption. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune illness, meaning your own body is triggered somehow to attack a part of itself, and that happens to be the thyroid. So with Hashimoto's, your body attacks your thyroid and it kills it off slowly, and that is what causes you to have the slow thyroid, the hypothyroidism. Not everybody with hypothyroidism, however, has Hashimoto's. Your hypothyroidism can be caused by a ton of different things. There's so many theories out there. If we get stuck on the why, we don't get to the action. So my big advice in that, because I definitely went down the research rabbit hole. I mean, hey, it's gotten me to where I am today. But back when I first started really diving into this, it was almost an unhealthy obsession. I was reading about it all the time, every day, all day. And my biggest advice to you is don't get stuck on the why it's happening. You can figure that out in time, but if your efforts should go into the actions that you need to take to feel better, if that makes sense, because you'll just be banging your head up against a wall forever and not getting anywhere and feeling frustrated. So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or I feel like I've heard a lot of people call it PCOS, which always cracks me up. I feel like that's a bird, but yeah. But PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And against popular belief, not everybody with PCOS will have cysts. PCOS has so many different symptoms. I mean, as does Hashimoto's, and it's very much dependent on the person. So there are different types of PCOS. Some people will have their PCOS caused by an imbalance in their estrogen. Some will have it caused by an imbalance in their testosterone, their adrenal glands. They'll have it brought on by inflammation, which is the most popular kind if you have Hashimoto's. I'll get into that in a minute. So there are a lot of different little tiny things that distinguish one type of PCOS from the other. However, the way you tackle that has to be different based on how your particular imbalance is set up. That one thing there, if I have learned that when I was 15 years old and hairier than the boys I went to school with, and literally crying in my doctor's office, having them look at me like, look at this emotional chubby girl, if I had only known and been validated in the fact that my symptoms were not like all the people I read about online, and my symptoms were maybe different than the two other girls that made it known they had PCOS in high school. If I had known that back then, and tell me if you can relate to this, I would have felt so much more validated and less alone, less misunderstood. So I think it's important that even though we don't dive in depth on those things, and you can definitely message me after if you need more clarification, but it's important to know we're all different. You're not crazy. It's not in your head. I promise. So that's the basics. Now, here's some secrets I want to tell you guys about this, and then we're going to get into more detail. Diet and exercise is not the only thing. And weight loss, or rather weight retention and weight gain, are not the only symptoms. Weight retention and weight gain are one of the many symptoms that you're going to experience as a result of your hormone imbalance. It didn't cause your hormone imbalance, and it's not going to cure your hormone imbalance either. It might make you feel a whole hell of a lot better, but like I said, diet and exercise is not the only thing that gets you there. And anybody in here who has slaved away on an elliptical day after day, or micromanage their portions, you can attest to that. It's not diet and exercise alone that's going to cut it for us, unfortunately. You can actually, just a little segue, I mentioned adrenal PCOS before. Even if that's not your main type, it's very common to have an adrenal issue if you have a hormonal imbalance. So regardless, if you undereat or over exercise with specifically cardio, you can actually exacerbate your adrenal PCOS. Makes it worse because it puts so much stress on the body, and stress is the worst thing for hormones. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's very, very important that you know about yourself so you can advocate for yourself and you can plan accordingly. Stress and lack of routine is worse for your hormones than going through, a drive-through, getting fries and a milkshake. It literally is that bad. And a majority of people I tell that to are like, well, it's impossible to change that. And I get that. We'll talk. But stress is worse than food. Even if your stress is out of control, you can't combat that with a diet. It just can't happen, So what you struggle with, this is a big one. What you struggle with does not make you bad or stupid or undisciplined or incapable. What you struggle with deserves to be tackled, deserves to be explained to you. You deserve to learn how to get around those things, just like anything else. That doesn't exclude weight just because we're women with weight on us. So keep that in mind. And yeah, weight is a symptom, not a cause. I just want to reiterate that because I will never forget the time my doctor, I sat there and I poured my heart out to this guy. And his response was to look at me with no expression in his face and just be like, have you tried eating less and moving more? As I was just telling him that I barely eat and I feel like I'm disgusted by it, So that lack of empathy is honestly the reason I began this program. When I got my results, I decided that if I had anything to do with it, and if anybody wanted to actually work with me, that they would never feel that. They would never feel unheard or blamed or just alone. So it's huge. It's a symptom, not a cause. Okay. So I'm a disaster, so I had to put everything on notes, just so you guys know. If you see me looking down here, I'm not just like picking lint out of my shirt. But the biggest issues that I see people run into that make them feel like it's absolutely impossible to lose weight or to change this is, first one, not seeing change no matter what. No matter how little you're eating, no matter how much you're working out, no matter, what supplements you try, whatever the case may be, not seeing a friggin' change. How many of you guys tell me in the comments, or if you want to, raise your hand or whatever, how many of you guys have gotten discouraged because you put in just as much work as someone else, if not more, and they got results? Not even faster than you. They got results and you didn't, or maybe they did it. Maybe you have a husband or a boyfriend who just stopped eating cheese last week and lost 10 pounds, So that's really disheartening. It's really hard, no one should blame us for feeling like that's hard. That's really like a punch in the gut. So stress, people who feel that stress is impossible to manage, especially without routine, those people always feel like they're behind the 8 ball or not good enough. Or even if you bust your ass, you go to work all day, you get home, you make dinner, you clean up, and for some reason there's still more to be done that you feel you should have gotten to. That common theme of being an overachiever, I want to just let you guys know watching this, praise you guys for a second. We're so quick to think we suck. But do you realize that you do what people who don't have health problems and their bodies battling them, you do what they do every day, plus more, and your body's pissed at you and making it harder. So don't think you're not good enough. I want you guys all to get off this Zoom at the end and realize that you are a freaking rock star because you do it sick, and you do it without complaining. You just do it damn, I wish I could do more. And that's amazing and commendable. So I want to just get that out of the way. You lose hope, so you have no structure. So everything feels impossible anyway. These are my F-it moments that I talk about all the time. I'm gonna censor my language a little bit in case there's any young ones listening in anywhere on here. But Structure is so important. And I used to be a fly by the seat of my pants type. I am to an extent still, but in everything in life, I used to be a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl. And I had absolutely no structure. I woke up every day and I was like, well, let's see what today brings, just like thinking it was going to be a disaster before I even got out of bed. Because I just didn't know I was just going to go through the motions and hopefully get it through. And that I found left me feeling like all I had for my life was work, and then feeling crappy about myself at home. And that's not an existence, it's not fun. It's really easy to say F it when you feel like that often. So you feel guilty. Guilt is such a theme for us. And one of the biggest things, tell me if you guys relate, one of the biggest things was I used to feel guilty because I didn't enjoy what I was eating. And I felt like, oh, I'm fat, I can't complain. I should just eat that stuff and not care and be disciplined and love this and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't. I was bored, or I felt it was too much work or overcomplicated to make the foods, and I didn't look forward to it. And then I felt bad because the food I wanted, I thought was going to make everything worse. It was just, so tell me if you can relate to that. You do too much of what you see on Instagram, and you over research and you try to make all the changes that you see in an intense degree as soon as you see it. Like, it's like as you're scrolling your feed, you're like, oh, that's something new to try this week. And it feels like you're on this hamster wheel of new things to try, and nothing really gives you any leverage. So these things that I'm talking about, I've heard them from, over the past few years that I've been doing this program, and within my own history. These are the common themes that plague us. And a lot of this has to do with us feeling like crap and it being slow. So let's get into it. The most important thing is that you have to be okay with slow. And listen, I could sit here. I can do my whole song and dance. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days. I could be that person. I could play on people's emotions and say, because I know how it feels to want something so bad. I could make a ton of promises, but I'm going to be real with you, because I would rather work with 2 people that understand this and get insane results and feel amazing, get their life back, than work with 10 people telling them half truths where they don't get any results. So if you hate me for this, I'm sorry, but I have to be honest. You have to get okay with slow. You have to make peace with our pace being very different. You can't look at you should lose 2 to 4 pounds per week thing that's all over Instagram, or just be in a calorie deficit. You can't look at those same rules for us. Our bodies are different. It doesn't mean we suck. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it is what it is. So being okay with slow means that you are willing to take it slow to make sure that you are going to have it done for the long run. Because who the hell wants to bust their ass for a month, lose maybe 5 pounds, let's say, in a month, if that's even going to happen, and then gain 10 the next month? Who wants to lose 50 pounds over the course of a couple years, and then in 5 years, you're even heavier than you were before you started? No, nobody. So at the risk of sounding like, oh God, I don't want that, I want it to happen now, that's fine with me. The people that are hearing this, that really are feeling this and connecting with this, you guys know as well as I do, you can wish and want it to be fast all you want. You can wish and want it to stick around forever all you want. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I would have wished for that a long time ago, So you have to be okay with lowering your expectations on time and focusing on conquering. And what I mean by that is my baby step method. So a lot of times when I talk to someone first, we're trying to feel each other out and see if I can actually help them. I notice that there are people who are very okay with wanting to be more confident, feeling better about themselves, learning about it, etc. And then you have the people, like I mentioned, that want that quick weight loss. They are obsessed with it. They need it now. And the thing is, I don't even work with those people typically, not because I don't want to help, but because when my first baby step to you is I want you to try finding a new gluten-free bread that you like. That's it for this whole week. And only once you start replacing bread and you feel good about it and you feel like what you found works for you and is delicious, etc., then we move on. That pace to somebody who is obsessed with weight loss, that's never going to feel fulfilling to them until they come to grips with the fact that you can't wish your weight off faster. Is this making sense so far, you guys? So, some of the things that are important to figure out when it comes to what baby steps to do is, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you some hard guidelines that I have. Everybody is different. So I'm not saying that I haven't had a client who got started with me and did different than this, but here's some basics. Okay. So I eat dairy, y'all. I love dairy. I love cheese. I love milk. I love ice cream. I love it all. And I get roasted for that all the time. But here's the thing. There's so much that has been speculated, right? About things how they affect our bodies. This is all one big puzzle. Hormones is one big puzzle, and all of our pieces are different. So some people can have dairy and their stomach breaks it down. They're not lactose intolerant. It doesn't cause a tremendous amount of inflammation, if at all, and life goes on. If you're changing so many friggin' things about your life, it becomes a lesser of evils kind of thing to an extent. But here's the thing. When I cut out grains and sugar, my particular stomach could tolerate dairy perfectly. Didn't cause any effects to me. I just love cheese. So my rule of thumb is not to cut dairy when you get started, at least with my method. It's to see how you feel with it. If you generally feel better without dairy, then sure, go for it. But to me, it's not a hard line cure or fix for these hormone imbalances. That's not going to make or break it, you know? Yeah, I see here, there's a comment. I think cutting dairy helped with my acne. I'm not sure. It very well could have. You know, that's the difference, is like everybody is very different. So if you find something that works for you and some things that don't, it becomes a balancing act of what becomes something that's sustainable. So for me, I'm fine with dairy. For a lot of my clients, they're fine with dairy. For a lot of my clients, they're not fine with dairy, and we got to help them with that. But my point to that is that should be an individualized thing, in my opinion. Now, what I do for sure recommend is cutting gluten. Now, this is important to do slowly. And I'm going to explain to you why I think that cutting gluten is helpful. And I'm also going to tell you how I baby step that out. Because look, you guys, anybody can be gluten-free for a month, you know, but you don't want to be miserable and gluten-free, and you don't want to be on and off and on and off. So anyway, gluten. I'm going to give you my, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Italian vernacular. If you ever heard the term gavone, I'm going to give you my gavone explanation of gluten. Okay, so when you eat gluten is formed by the bonding of two proteins. I said I was going to give you the gavone explanation. I hopped into chemistry, but I promise it's easy. So it's formed by the bond of two proteins. Depending on how crusty something is or how firm something is how much gluten, how tight the bonds are. For example, if you have a cake, there's flour in it, but it's very crumbly and light. But then you have a pretzel or pizza crust, and it's, hard. So when you eat gluten, it starts going down your esophagus, and it starts causing damage to the cilia, the little hairs that are inside of your esophagus here. I call them throat eyelashes, which is the creepiest thing ever. But because your little throat eyelashes, it starts destroying them, right? And what those little throat eyelashes do, besides moving your food down, is they start absorbing nutrients as you're eating. So particularly if you have Hashimoto's, you are already at a risk of not absorbing nutrients as well. So you don't want to also lose nutrients that way. Fine, it gets down to your stomach. Now, your stomach has a certain amount of time in which it's supposed to break down your food to the point where it can be digested easily in your intestines. When you eat gluten, your stomach has a hard time breaking that down. I know at least once everyone in here has had pasta, pizza, bread, something, and feels that like lead ball feeling where it's just like gross, like just, oh, you know, and that's not in your head. It's because your stomach might be having a hard time breaking it down. As food stays in the stomach longer than it's expected, it starts decomposing and releasing gases. Those gases cause bloating. Then it moves down into your intestines finally, but it's not broken down all the way. And when that happens, it causes damage to the inside of your intestines, and little itty bitty microscopic pieces of food can escape that way. Now, I'm not saying your bagel and schmear is hanging out down by your ankle. Don't worry. Like, your food's not like getting out there and going around. But these little itty bitty particles that do, your body recognizes them, and it's like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. So your immune system becomes engaged to fight these things. Now, in addition to this causing overall inflammation, which if you have Hashimoto's is always enemy number one. We are looking to reduce your inflammation. When you eat these things, and this all happens, it causes mass inflammation, and it also causes you to not absorb nutrients as well and disrupt the gut balance. Now, gut balance could be a whole other webinar on its own. It's a crazy world, but know that most of our immune system is from our gut. And if you have an autoimmune issue, which is something's causing your body to freak out at itself, you definitely want to reduce your immune response. In addition to that, PCOS is affected by gut health because gut health ties in very closely with our hormone absorption and production. Our gut also contains a big storage of serotonin. So for all of you guys who have messaged me or have looked for help in this area, experiencing depression, experiencing anxiety, one of the main stores of serotonin is also in our gut. So if that's disrupted, you're not having an even release of serotonin, which regulates, your emotions. I mean, any of you guys in here have ever taken an antidepressant or something, and then you've had real bad stomach issues like right after as you were adjusting? That's because the serotonin levels in your stomach and your gut are being affected. Just a little fun fact. So that is why I have made it my mission to make delicious gluten-free substitutes, or at least point people in the right direction, help them figure it out, help them test stuff out. I am a food nerd. Little Michelle fact. I actually worked at a bunch of bakeries. I went to culinary school for pastry and bread, which is really ironic because I'm gluten-free. But I found my love of experimenting with recipes in that whole career path. And in that, I really wanted to make new breads. So that was the most important to me. And if you're not in my Pudge page, message me after this and let me know. I will add you to my my big recipe page. Everything's in there. It's all free. So, okay, moving along. Carb tolerance. This is a big one. Everybody thinks that keto or low carb or whatever is the number one gold standard for taking care of insulin resistance, PCOS, Hashimoto, everything under the sun can be cured by cutting carbs, right? No. Some adrenal insufficiency issues are made worse by going too low carb. Some inflammation is made worse by going too low carb. Everybody has their own individual carb tolerance, and that is the level in which they need to fuel their body, but not go overboard so you don't have a big insulin response. Insulin is the hormone your body releases to break down the carbohydrates and the sugars that you eat. When you become insulin resistant, and this can happen to both those with PCOS, which is more common, and also with Hashimoto's as a result of weight retention. So insulin resistance is when your body has to release more insulin than it normally should to cover the amount of carbs that you're eating, because your body is not responsive to the normal amount of insulin that should be released. When that happens, you release other hormones with it. And these other hormones that come with it make it really hard to lose weight, in addition to causing some really unsavory side effects and making you feel like crap. So carb tolerance, everybody has a different one. It takes time to figure out how. When I work with people and I do baby steps, a lot of times we get through the changes we have to make first, And then we dive into slowly figuring out your carb tolerance. I have had plenty of clients that have actually been told, you have to be keto, you have to be keto, right? And when they started working with me, I freaked them the hell out because I was like, I'm going to need you to add a cup of brown rice to your meals every day, like to your daily intake. They looked at me like I had 15 heads because they're like, I've been dieting. I'm going to gain weight. And then they didn't, So carb tolerance should be something that's important to figure out, but it should be done after you slowly make the other changes you have to and you feel good about them. That's when you'll have a much easier time bringing that, figuring out that carb tolerance. So, sugar-free. I am completely sugar-free. Now, I used to have the worst cravings ever. I have had a sweet tooth my whole damn life. I swear to God, I should have been born eating a Hershey's bar. But like so I feel you. But here's the thing. Sugar is a mass inflammation causer. So if we're trying to battle inflammation to get our hormones in balance, especially my hashi's in here, sugar is not going to be helpful. It's not going to feel good, So what do? Do we just say, oh, I don't like sweets anymore? No, it becomes important that we find something that we enjoy replacing with. I don't know why I didn't finish that sentence right, but that's the important part. Hang on. I've been talking all day. I'm like, I don't even know how I have a voice still. Now, these baby steps that I take, I literally, like, if you're going to go gluten-free, find the one thing that you eat that has the most gluten in it, I don't even know if there's no way for you to measure it, but pasta, bread, whatever you see the most commonly from your day-to-day and your daily intake, make that your goal to be the one thing you focus on replacing first. When you find something that replaces it with ease and you're good, move on to the next thing. Doing this will seem so ridiculously slow. However, if you're going to lose weight slow anyway, why are you going to make yourself miserable? Don't let fear of it getting worse make you rush into something that could make it worse and make you feel worse mentally about it afterwards. That's counterintuitive as well. Now, there are other, as I mentioned before, there are other components to hormonal weight loss besides the food. And some big ones, I mentioned stress, but routine so that you have the things you need throughout the day. You're drinking enough water. You have your food that's going to help you get through the day. That routine is super important. Sleep. So many people I talk to, I say, how's your sleep? And they go, I land on the pillow at night and I am out until the morning. But I'll tell you what, I wake up, I feel like I didn't sleep a wink. And then I have other people who say, I am exhausted, and I go lay down and my heart starts pumping like I'm going to get up and go work out, and my mind starts running and I can't even fall asleep. And when I do, everything wakes me up. I have people who fall asleep fine but wake up 3-4 times a night. My point is this. If you're not getting deep sleep, it doesn't matter how long you're asleep. And people who have a hard time getting that deep sleep, it makes hormones worse. So a good way to establish, better sleep is, one, download a sleep tracking app of some kind. That'll show you kind of like how much out of your actual sleep was spent in deep sleep. And it's usually pretty alarming to see because it's like this much deep sleep, even though there's this much regular sleep, so that explains it as well. Yeah, I could sleep all day and still be tired. That was me. I was afraid to drive because I couldn't keep my eyes open sometimes. It'd be like 4:00 in the afternoon, so sleep is a big one. And it's okay if you need help with that. It's not all on your shoulders. Something to explore for sure. And here's another one. The mental energy in which we approach each day, how our emotions range from day to day. Now, if you have hormonal mood swings, I'm not telling you you stressing out. And I get it. It's a side effect. It's a symptom. Okay. But having a mantra to get through common situations. It sounds so stupid if you're not into that. And I used to not be into all that cosmic stuff, you know, but having a mantra, what's the problem with having something you tell yourself to get through a situation if you got to get through it anyway? You know, what's the point of being miserable getting through that situation? So some common mantras that I tell myself is, you know, you are working hard. You are doing the best you can. You do deserve a break. You've got your shit together. You know, little things. It sounds so dumb, but you know what? Pep talk yourself, just like you would pep talk your best friend if they came to you and said to you any of the stuff that you have running through your head every day. It used to be so hard for me to do that because I really resented myself. But the way you kind of get through that resentment is by almost stubbornly trying to continue that mantra in your head. My favorite one recently, you know, I'm a very confident person in case you can't tell, but look, I was meeting my husband's coworkers at a holiday Christmas party for, you know, he's a teacher. I am not a teacher. Everybody else there worked together and we're teachers. So needless to say, your girl was nervous. So on the way there, I'm obsessing over how my makeup looks, my hair. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to look like a crackhead. Like I got to get together. And then I thought to myself, I look how I look. I feel great. And I was like, huh. Imagine I just kept thinking that all night. And no matter what I looked like, I had a great night. And so I did. And I did. I just kept saying it to myself. Every time those limiting beliefs came in where it's like, oh my God, you know, like, how are you sitting? Do you look awkward? I have OCD and panic disorder. I have for a very long time, you know, so it's as confident as I am in some situations. If anyone tells you that you should just like snap out of it, then they obviously don't go through it. So some situations I really do have to be silently pep talking myself through it just to get through it. Not often, used to be all the time, but that's a part of life. As long as you can give that mantra to yourself, you can help yourself have a better experience, even if it's not as perfect as you'd want it to be. So those are some things to definitely consider for your baby steps. I love picking out which baby step to start with people. That is my favorite thing to do. So at the end here, what I'm going to do is offer you guys a chance to book a call with me and talk about some of these things. And if you book with me at the end of the night tonight, I will also help map out for you what I would recommend your first few baby steps be in the order in which you do it. So stay tuned for that at the end of the night. Okay, moving right along. All right, food. Guys, I have a few philosophies about this, and here's the number one. Food should friggin' be enjoyable. It should be delicious. We should be grateful to have access to it, and that doesn't mean eating anything that comes our way. It doesn't mean eating spinach and chicken every day. You know, it doesn't mean being bored by our food choices. If we have to finagle things and figure it out and make it fit for our body, you know, make it something that helps our body feel good. Why does it have to be health food? And why do we have to feel bad that we don't want to eat health food? What? I don't want to eat quinoa. Anybody in here particularly? I mean, like quinoa is pretty good depending on how you make it, but I don't find myself craving friggin' quinoa. Anybody else? You know, I don't wake up in the morning and be like, chia seeds. Like that's just not my thing. So what did I do? Was I going to live miserably because like it's either skinny or like food? No. Like, so I went on a friggin' quest, as I mentioned earlier. You know, I went to culinary school. I really loved cooking. And for a long time, I just convenience ate. I just ate whatever the hell was on the way home. Same here, Kyra. But I convenience ate whatever was on the way home, whatever I was in the mood for at that time. I would let food go bad in my fridge to get stuff that I wanted to get from takeout just because I would trick myself into saying, well, that's faster. I'm so tired. You know, that's going to taste good. I deserve it. I worked really hard, you know, and that's not going to do anything because while you could be good for a couple weeks, you're going to not see results as fast as you want. You're going to be exhausted and feel crappy, and you're going to pass friggin' In-N-Out burger on the way home and be like, you know, so I wish I would pass an In-N-Out burger. There's none in New Jersey. I just said that. But you have an In-N-Out burger near you, bless up, because I wish I did. But you see what I'm getting at? I want to say something about binging too. Binging is not always crying into a pint of Ben and Jerry's, or eating alone locked up in your closet, eating a pack of donuts to the face, or going to a buffet and that's not always a binge. That is a binge, but it's not always a binge. In my opinion, a binge is any kind of reaction that ties emotion with food, a reward or a sabotage, reward or punishment. The screw it, it's not going to work anyway, punishment, or I had such a stressful day, I really deserve this. I have a crazy schedule coming up and I'm traveling for work. I am not going to focus on my eating. I am not going to put pressure on myself to watch what I eat. It's any kind of thing where we use food in any way besides sustenance or something we enjoy. So, how many of you guys have thrown it all out the door, whatever it is that you had been doing for the past X amount of time, because of any of those reasons? I for sure have, many times. And that's what led me to this point. You need to figure out what your binge triggers are. And you need to prioritize those binge triggers. And what I mean by that is, if you have something in your house that you cannot just have one piece of or two pieces of, or whatever you decide, you can't stop once you start. I do. I for sure do. It's like anything potato, for God's sake. Oh God, what's better than potato, honestly? But anything potato, it's not that I can have it and have a bit and be good, or have a bit and have it fit into my day. If I have a bag of potato chips, I know myself. I'm going to be bummed out that I can't go eat more of those potato chips, even if I don't. That kind of subconscious, I don't deserve food, that lingers with you. That makes it so much harder to do everything you have to do. And it makes it so much easier to give up. We immediately think that if we allow ourselves to believe this very important philosophy of mine, and that is all food is a choice. We think that if we buy into that we're going to go off the rails. We're going to eat everything under the sun. We're going to friggin', ice cream and pizza and this and that and have no regard for the food. Would any of you do that? I wouldn't. The thing is that when we view food as choices and we really buy into the choices, why we make the choices we make, we're mindful about the choices we make. We choose the foods for our hormones. Oh no, I'm losing my voice. That's happening. But when we feel confident in the choices that we're making, we tend to choose for our hormones the majority of the time because we don't feel like shit when we do. And then sometimes you may choose something that's not helpful for hormones, but guess what? I have a spoiler alert. You will be just fine. You will be fine. It will not send you backwards. If it becomes a habit, then yes, like anything else, this is a maintainable illness. It's not a curable one. But you're not going to go off the rails. You know what you're going to do? You're going to feel friggin' good and free for once. You're going to feel proud of every choice that you make. And wouldn't that be nice? And don't you deserve that at any size? So my philosophy, people are confused by that because here I am saying, go gluten-free, go this, that. I never tell my clients that they are not allowed to have something. I never tell my clients that they're bad for having something. There is data behind every decision we make with food. And with that data comes the ability to teach around it, to understand why we did that, where it's connected, how we can prevent it in the future. Why would you want to give up on that lesson? Wouldn't you want to know it about yourself and have something delicious to teach you it in the process? That's not a binge. That's making a food choice. Okay, I think for a long time, I didn't trust myself with my own food choices. So I let emotions make my food choices. And that only kept me stuck. So keep that in mind. Here's some common binge triggers. A big one for me is over restriction and portioning. It's not enough, excuse me. It's not enough for me to know what I can and can't eat. That's already like drives me nuts. But what drives me nuts is only have a half a cup of this, only have 8 ounces of this. I believe that you should eat until you're full. And I believe for everybody here, I saw before a few people were asking, like, why am I always hungry? Hormones and messed up hunger cues as a result of hormones. That's a symptom. You're not crazy, and you're not, you're not a cow. I promise. I used to call myself that. That's why I say it. You're none of those things. You're struggling with symptoms of an illness, right? So telling someone they can have a half a cup of something, they're probably still going to be hungry. There's going to be more than a half a cup there. So immediately they start thinking, well, maybe I'll have a little bit more. Maybe I'll have a little bit more. And before you know it, you're eating out of the container without the freaking measuring cup, at least if you're me. So portioning and over-restricting is a big binge trigger. Cravings. Cravings are a symptom of both Hashimoto's and PCOS. Cravings can vary. I find with my Hashi clients, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, they tend to crave more like food, like actual food. Breads, potatoes, meals, they're just hungry. And I find from people with PCOS, it tends to be sweets or salty, one of those two. And then there's occasional people who enjoy all facets of food. I guess I can kind of put myself in that one. But cravings, there's a way around it. I am big on replacing, on substituting, replacing, and finding different ways to have the things that I want in the moment and know that they're helping my hormones. Those of you who are in my Pudge page or have my my cookbook, you can see that I create like the typical favorites. And the reason I have those recipes is because I craved all that at one point. So I was like, we're going to figure this out, honey. I'm going to figure out how to eat this whenever I want. So stress at work or stress at home. Stress, just like gut health, could be a whole other webinar. And truth be told, I've done that webinar before. So if you want the recording for that, let me know. I have no problem sending it over to you. But stress needs to be coped with and dealt with because we are only given X amount of mental energy every day. The only way to regenerate that mental energy is to go to bed and to get sleep. So if you are stressing out because you don't have a routine, you feel like everything at work keeps piling up and you're never getting ahead of it. You feel like you can't even take a lunch because you got to work through it and you're not eating all day long. And then you get home and it's chaos and your house is a disaster and you forgot to take the freaking chicken out of the freezer this morning. That snowballs. If you if you spend all your mental energy by your 11 a.m. staff meeting, good luck getting through the end of the night, the end of the day. No wonder you feel like you ran a marathon all day, okay? And what's more comforting than sitting down on the couch after your body is aching and swollen and tired than eating something comforting that you want? I have definitely been there. Flare days. Flare days when you feel particularly shitty. Those are the days, at least for me, where I'm like, oh, God, I just want French fries. I just want potatoes. I just want to sit in front of sit on the couch and not move and not eat. And not look at anyone, not talk, and just eat. And I can speak that from experience. But foods at home. I have heard this a lot. People they feel nervous throwing things out that they have at home or giving them away, which I always recommend. I don't advocate wasting food, but if you know there is something in your house that is a binge trigger, it's okay to get rid of it. And every time I say that, I hear people, but I feel bad, my partner or my kids or whatever. You know what? I'm going to be blunt here, guys. If it's not helpful for you, it's definitely not helpful for them, and they can have those things. Maybe have them keep it in their room. Maybe have them keep it in the car. Maybe have them have it before they come home. If you feel embarrassed to ask that, then you're looking at it from a sense of I'm fat and I should be embarrassed. You're not looking at it from I have an illness and my symptom is this and my family supports me in fixing my symptoms like I would support them in fixing theirs. It's not easy. It's definitely difficult. You know, if you need support in this area, for sure, reach out. But it's okay. It's okay to be prioritized that way. It's not because you're doing it to yourself. It's not because you should just be able to snap out of it. How long have you been trying to snap out of it now? It's okay to need backup sometimes. You're always everybody else's backup. It's time you have it too, you know? So your kids won't hate you if you didn't have candy around the house growing up, you know? Just keep that in mind. Not eating foods you enjoy. That's a big one. No, I'm not even gonna dive into the whole who the hell wants to eat chicken and spinach every day. I think that's self-explanatory. Overweighing is a big binge trigger. Overweighing. I can't tell you how many times I have gotten a message from someone, help, I've gained 2 pounds since yesterday. You probably gained 2 pounds of poop. Let's be honest. You know, you gained 2 pounds of crap. Or maybe you're just, I don't know, retaining weight, retaining water, or maybe you're gaining weight, but at the end of the day, why are you weighing every day? You're signing yourself up to feel like crap. Because do you feel good whenever you look at the number? Does it change anything? Does it change what you do? Does it make you more efficient at losing weight? No. So don't burden yourself and wake up and start your day feeling like crap, because it's going to carry throughout the entire day. Remember my story, 6 months, I didn't weigh myself. That was a huge feat. I used to be a daily weigher. Okay. So throw that freaking scale out. It doesn't serve you any. Okay. Mindless snacking. That's a big one. So for me, I love rice cakes. It's like the one health food that like I really, really love. I love rice cakes. And I used to just take the bag and go sit in front of the TV and be like, oh, I'm just going to have one. No, I wasn't. Like, you know, like deep down, I knew I wasn't either. And I kept breaking them up as I ate them, because like if I took little pieces of the rice cake, maybe I wouldn't, you know, feel like I ate too much. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Decide. If you're going to have 3, 5, 10 rice cakes, again, it's a food decision you're making. Know the ramifications. Decide if that's worth it for you. And if so, go for it. But you portion out those 10 and take them to the couch with you. Make that decision. Okay? Don't let emotions or just taste make the decision for you. You're in charge of your food choices. You're allowed to be in charge of your food choices. Okay? So those are my big binge triggers that I hear most commonly. And I think it's important that we call attention to it. So back to food. Here's my philosophy on what kind of food helps people stick to diets. It has to be convenient. It has to be cheap. It has to be delicious. And it has to be something that is similar to what you're already preparing or eating or enjoying now, with some tweaks to what the ingredients are so they help your body. This is difficult to teach in a 1-hour webinar because there's so much food that this applies to. Again, if you are not in my Pudge page, make sure to ask for it or search it on Facebook. Okay. And that is my entire recipe community. People are surprised when I put priority behind it being delicious. And I think that's just more diet stigma, or the thought that it can't be delicious and help you lose weight, you know. But I promise I really love food. If you follow my accounts, you see I eat pretty well, you know, pretty often. It has to line up with what you do already. That's the most important part besides taste. And that is, why are we beating ourselves over the head here? Why are we saying like, oh, why can't I just get into the swing of things? Because maybe that's not your damn swing, baby. Maybe you don't want to just do that for the rest of your life. Maybe you're just tired. You're busy. You don't want to have to come home and make a Pinterest meal where, you know, you destroy your kitchen and end up with this little dish of food that's like, meh. You know, maybe sometimes you want to just use like a half a package of cheese and make yourself something. And that's okay. It's figuring out how your body reacts to things, using that to tweak the ingredients in something, and fulfilling those cravings instead of making them the villain. That's the name of the game. Okay? And nobody should be taking out a second mortgage to support a diet. All right? That is it. Like, look, some of the ingredients we use are more expensive. Like, would you ever buy almond flour otherwise? No. But does almond flour go a long way? Generally. The rest of the foods should not be that expensive. You know, if you have to buy one or two things that are a little bit higher price, that shouldn't be your entire diet. That is not sustainable. That's not going to stick. You're stressed. You're not getting results. You're feeling crappy. Guess what goes out the window? The expensive, boring, complicated ass diet. I want to say I hear that people on average, whenever I have someone that said that they've done paleo, I always ask, how many times? Because there's a reason. It's usually more than 2. And even if they do get results from going paleo or doing Whole30 or whatever, it doesn't stick. It's not sustainable. And then they feel bad for not wanting to live on that protocol forever. So stop fighting your human nature. That's my biggest thing. When it comes to food, stop fighting human nature and start figuring out how you can work with it and kind of re-engineer it to suit you. It's doable. And if you need my help, you let me know. All right, so we're going to close with this because I'm chatty tonight, so I have gone over my 1 hour time here. But we're going to close with this. Confidence. So many people think you need to lose the weight to get the confidence. And I cannot tell you how wrong that is. And I don't want to say it and be condescending and be like, you're wrong. But I love you guys, but you're wrong. I used to think that. And let me tell you something. I was miserable in pursuit of it. And even, you know, I have people that I see that lose 10 pounds and they're like, oh, my skin's sagging. Or 10 pounds, but like I still have love handles. Or then they get down to the weight they like, and there is still something that they pick apart on themselves about. I can't tell you how many skinny friends I have that have zero confidence whatsoever. So my point to this is, if we got to deal with the card that we're dealt, why do we have to feel like shit about that card too? So having self-confidence is you need to forgive your body. That was me. Like, I was so mad at my body for so long. And you have to forgive it and understand nothing was done to you. As much as you were given a battle you didn't want, nobody does. You know, you got to make peace with that. I said it before, I'll say it again. This is one big puzzle, and all of us have different freaking puzzle pieces. So, you know, if you don't have respect for that puzzle, and respect for the amazing machines that our bodies are. And sometimes those machines don't work 100% right. Without that realization, that acceptance, that forgiveness to yourself, you're going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're going to be waiting till you can prove to yourself yet again that you don't deserve something or that it's not going to happen. And nobody deserves to live a life like that. Okay? Perfect. I really wanted to say the real word, but perfect. Okay? Perfect doesn't exist. So forgive yourself for being your imperfect self and work on figuring out how you can make something of this life you've been given that makes you proud still. Because it is doable, I promise you. The funny thing about that is, until I had that come to light moment where I realized this, I couldn't lose a damn pound. And when I stopped harping on myself about that, and I started saying, how can I support my body? My body, for better or for worse, has had my back because here I am. How can I support it? How can I make it feel better? How can I respect this machine? How can I take pride in respecting this machine and say screw you to other people, to judgment, to, looking bigger than other girls in pictures? Who cares? Until I hit that, and it took a while, until I hit that moment, I couldn't lose weight. And once I did, everything changed. Everything. So if there's one thing I leave you with, it's that you deserve that. And I hope, whether it's through working with me, talking to me, I'm still your friend, regardless if you're my client or not. Whatever the case may be, I want you guys to understand I believe in all of you and think each and every single one of you deserves that. Okay? So before I open it up for Q&A, I'm going to go back through the chat. Anybody who wants to book a call to talk further with me, I'm going to be reaching out to you guys, just so you know. Don't get freaked out. I'm not trying to pitch you or anything. I'm just going to reach out to you guys after this for some feedback. So feel free to let me know if you would like to book that call. And like I said, if you do book that tonight, you'll also get my suggestions on what baby steps to get started with, even if we don't end up progressing to working together. Okay. If you don't have questions or don't want to hang out for the Q&A, you can feel free to hop off here. I won't be offended. I'm just going to scroll back up and see what I can answer here. Okay. Stupid voice. Okay. Yeah. Stop eating or eating less, but still gaining. Yo-yo dieting. It's the worst. It's the worst. I don't know what's worse, like how crappy it feels to adjust to a new diet, or like, here comes another diet, like, and still feeling like it doesn't do anything. The obsession with weight. Yep. I go through phases and moods. I like healthy foods, then I crave bad foods. I feel like I have a lot of hunger, like I'm hungrier than I should be. Hunger cues. Hunger cues definitely get screwed up, especially if your hormones are off balance, and especially if you've been trained to not trust hunger cues. I get hungry all the time. It's about what you eat in those moments. That I don't restrict myself. I don't stop. I don't portion control. I don't say, oh, it's not time to eat again, or it's too late to eat. I eat when I'm hungry, and I eat till I'm full. I just am cognizant of the decisions that I make and the foods that I eat, whenever that may be. And it hasn't led me wrong. Food, hunger shouldn't be a bad thing. I read high testosterone makes you hungrier. I know that I have high testosterone from lab that was done previous. Yeah, high testosterone. So think of testosterone as, it's the male hormone. So if you think about it, men who have testosterone, they eat more than us. They make more muscle than us. They bulk more than us, have more hair than us, have a higher sex drive because of the testosterone. So all of those different things, you're going to see an increase in your own body if you have high T or high testosterone. Androgenic PCOS is what it's called. And androgenic PCOS, the high testosterone, that's the most common form, at least from what I have seen. Generally, not that much research or studies have been done recently on the different types, but thank God there's finally a discussion. I've been wanting to try gluten-free bread. I think cutting out bread makes me want it more and cheat with substance. That's exactly what I was saying. It's about finding that delicious replacement. That one thing that you're like, well, why wouldn't I eat this? When you can hit that point where it's like, well, why wouldn't I eat this? You're in the clear because there's nothing to fall off of. You eat things you like, it helps your hormones and you feel better and you lose weight. It's a win-win, ShopRite has one from 3 Bakers, I think. Not sure if it's the right one. I have a lot of recommendations for gluten-free bread, like store-bought. So what I could do is, I'll remember. I'll put a list together of my favorite recommendations for store-bought gluten-free stuff, and I will post it this week. So keep an eye out for that for sure. Just all my favorites. If you haven't heard of netrition.com, NETRITION. I'm a little dyslexic, so please forgive me. Netrition.com. That is, I have found to be cheaper than Amazon, which I never thought I was ever going to say. Cheaper than Amazon. They have a ton of stuff, like almost an overwhelming variety of things you can buy. Gluten-free cakes, cookies, breads, croutons, breadcrumbs, breadsticks, whatever. They have it all. I love Netrition. It's cheaper than Amazon. Free shipping over $50. Last time I ordered, I got my order in 2 days. So same timing as Prime. And yeah, I'm obsessed. I don't even get royalties for suggesting it. I should. The amount of people I tell to go on that site. Can a food allergy panel tell you if you're sensitive to dairy, or is it by self-monitoring? If you're allergic, there are different enzymes in milk. There's casein, there's whey, there's lactose. So sometimes people could be reactive to a certain component within that milk. So it is a lot of like kind of just or self-monitoring, brain fart, self-monitoring, food diaries are extremely important to see how things affect you and find common patterns. So, but typically when I get someone on sugar-free and grain-free, meaning, gluten-free, no flour, no corn, no rice, they can tolerate cheese like anything. It's fine. Gluten-free just for insulin resistant. Oh, Ramina, I'm sorry you were sick today. Gluten-free is not just for insulin resistance. If I'm going to be posting this recording at some point, but go back in the recording if you didn't see to when I explained like what it does biologically. That happens to essentially everyone, but when you have a hormone imbalance and you're trying to control your inflammation and you're trying to get your gut in check and all that because it affects hormones so much, that's when we have to hyper focus on it. To find out your carb tolerance, do you start out low carb and slowly add in carbs? No. So there is a different method for everyone. That is a tough one. It takes time for sure. And it's very much kind of, you need the hand holding to get through it because you don't want to spend forever figuring out your carb tolerance, but you don't want to go too fast and miss it either. So definitely message me after this and we can discuss that for sure. I sleep and sleep and sleep and I'm tired. Yeah, definitely not deep sleeping. So there are a bunch of different apps. I have to find the one that I loved. I don't know if it's still working, if it's just, it closes out the second you open it up. It didn't need a watch to go with it, which was awesome. A lot of them might need like an iWatch or a Fitbit or something like that. But look around on the App Store. I can try remember to post some suggestions in my stories after this. How much deep sleep do you need? So every REM cycle, which means rapid eye movement, which is the deep sleep you need. REM cycles average about 4 hours. So you ideally want to be able to get at least one REM cycle in there with sleep, other sleep, not REM sleep, but kind of light sleep as well. So it depends. People really crap on me when I say this, but look, I sleep about 4 hours to 5 to maybe 6 hours depending per night. And my energy is great. I feel crappier when I sleep more, but I have a routine that goes with that. I am able to fall into a deep sleep for the majority of that time, so it's very much dependent on you and the whole process. Puzzle pieces, ladies. Tried to cram as much as I could in an hour and we're already over. Sorry, I'm chatty. I used to be on ADD medicine and was never tired and never overweight, but I wasn't mentally healthy. Like I was never relaxed. I quit the day I graduated college. Yeah, I mean, if that's helped you feel better, I'm a big proponent of, listen, we need to destigmatize mental health medications. Like, psychiatric medications are nothing to be ashamed of. It's not that you took the easy way out or it's a cop out. And that goes for whether it's ADD meds, depression, anxiety, whatever the hell the case may be. The brain is an organ like all others, except it has the most responsibility of all others, and our emotions, our behaviors, our thoughts wrapped into it. There's a lot that the brain's got to handle. And if you need a little help with that carrying that load, like there's nothing that should be judged about that. But if you feel like you start a medication and it lowers your quality of life, that's something to consider as well. You got to weigh those options and see which one is good for you, but always do it with your mental health care professional. I do enjoy quinoa, but I sure as hell don't crave it. Same. Carbs and sweets, muffins, donuts, ice cream. Yes, so good. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm so hungry. Canyon Bakehouse is delicious. Delicious. I love that gluten-free bread. It's for those of you who are finding your carb tolerance or whatever. It is a little carb heavy, but worth it. I love it. How do you feel about diets like Weight Watchers? Thank you for sharing your sleep app. So diets like Weight Watchers. Here's the thing. When we are, oh my God, what did I just do to my hair? When we are balancing hormones, we still have to pay attention to what it is that we're eating. So while Weight Watchers is great because it It helps you feel like you can make your own food choices, which is great. You should be able to make your own food choices in reason normally. Portions aren't really the thing here. Usually it's the types of food we're eating. I have been putting off doing this post because it makes me nervous. I don't want to offend anybody or belittle anyone's journey. But the thing about gastric surgery with hormonal illness is 50% of people with gastric surgery end up regaining. It's sad, but it's the case. And that's people, not even people with hormone issues. That's in general. That's the overall long-term success rate. Now that gastric surgery has become so popular for so long now, we're getting to see a lot more, just studies done. And 50% of people regain. Now, the thing that led you to need the surgery was not because you were sitting and eating all day long. It's because your hormones got you there. Your metabolism got you there, in addition to those food choices. So yes, you may lose a lot of weight at first. I'm not going to deny that. You may end up losing the weight you need to get on your feet and get moving again. Okay, great. But you need to maintain that, because if you don't, then the things that led you to need it in the first place are still, damn it, still there. And they're just going to wreak havoc on you again. And you absorb far less nutrients when you get gastric sleeve surgery or gastric surgery in general. If you have Hashimoto's, you are already not absorbing enough nutrients. So keep that in mind. I was hoping to get your input, if possible, on exercising with autoimmune disease. When do we cross the line from being beneficial to being hurtful? Anytime you're doing a workout that your heart is pounding and you're sweating, you're breathing heavy, your muscles are burning, we've been conditioned to think that that's great. And that if you can't hack that, then you're just not working hard enough. But when that's happening, the reason why you can overwork out and it affects adrenal PCOS is that amount of stress on the body releases adrenaline. It causes an adrenaline reaction. When it causes that adrenaline reaction, you get that heart pump. And when you get that heart pump, you get all the hormones that come with adrenaline, usually male hormones. And it just overall causes a flood of inflammation after the fact from that over adrenaline release. So it's something to keep in mind. I'm not saying don't do cardio, don't go for walks. If you love running, don't lose something you love, but just make sure you are not doing like high intensity cardio all the time, because it's still stress on your body. Nutripath told me to try cutting out carbs and dairy. It's been tough, especially because lactose-free is not the same as dairy-free, and gluten-free is good, but still carbs. Also, sweet potatoes, yam, squash. People say it's good for diets, but still carbs. So hard to know is best and what is right for me. Yeah. So I'm not trying to be, the sleazy salesperson here. This exact thing is why I started doing what I was doing. I never make any bones about saying I am not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist. I am somebody who looks at things like it should be easy to figure out. Like we should have a plan. We should take the things that make us feel good and figure out a way to put them into motion in a way that is sustainable. That's the hard part. Most of you guys have been told to do things time and time again, I'm sure, and you've tried. You put it into action. It's not the thing. It's the continuing of the thing, So reach out to me. If you want, we can dive into that. I can offer you as much help as I am able to. I'm exhausted all the time. No magic sleep time. If I overdo it one day, I'm hosed for the next two. Yes. So that is huge. Reserving your energy. You're going to have days where you feel like nothing's wrong. You're going to have days where you feel significantly better. And on those days, it's going to be so tempting to push it and to go and max out as much energy as you can because, oh my God, finally I can get out of bed. And then the next day, when you're sore and swollen and exhausted, you feel like, is this forever? Like, is this going to be my life forever? And it's awful. And I feel you. That is something that comes from the ability to not feel guilt taking time for yourself and not feeling guilt saying no to people or being the girl that needs to rest. It's okay. The right people will value that and you deserve it. And knowing you deserve it is where confidence comes from. So I feel you, girl. I was gluten-free for a long time, but it was in the worst place. I was in the worst place, health, mental, everything. Yeah. I find that a lot of people that are almost like traumatized by going gluten-free is because it was done fast. It was done like an elimination diet. And that feeling, like I said before, like the attachment of I'm not allowed to have the foods I want, that really sticks with you. And it's draining. I believe in the brain body connection wholeheartedly. So the way you go about gluten-free should be in a way that makes you feel excited about it and like proud of it and wanting to do it, you know? Should be like a, why wouldn't I eat this way kind of thing, not a, I have to eat this way kind of thing. Very different mentality shift between the two. And it's hard. It's definitely hard. So exercising is so hard for me. And this is the last question. I'm going to close it up here, but exercising is so hard for me. I have Ehlers-Danlos, and I think I have POTS or maybe exercise intolerance. My heart rate is ridiculous, and then I'm dead for like 2 days after that. Okay, so we release different hormones when we work out, and those different hormones can make us feel like shit. We also release lactic acid. So you may have a lactic acid buildup. I mean, with EDS, it's going to be, you're going to feel shitty, you know. I don't have EDS, but I have mixed connective tissue disease. So all of my connective tissues are affected. I got to be honest with you. I don't really exercise. I do seated resistance exercises because it's pretty much all my joints can handle. And, you know, that's makes me feel more limbered up. It helps get my blood flowing and helps get my heart rate up a bit, but not enough for it to be hard cardio. And I've definitely noticed a difference in just like the toning of areas. After losing 80 pounds too, you got to make sure we always got to battle loose skin. So, you know, being able to do those seated resistance exercises help build the muscles around the areas that are hard. Like I build the muscles around my back using my core. I try to build on the muscles around my shoulders, you know, things like that. And being able to continue moving and stuff like that is going to help you a lot. So don't feel bad taking it way back. It doesn't mean that you should have to work to the point of exercising hard. It just means you got to find what works for you. So I know that a lot of this was kind of general. I wanted to make you guys feel understood as much as possible, touch on things that I felt were the most important in the time that we had here. And like I said, I'll be reaching out to you guys for feedback. Don't be worried. I'm not going to spam you. And if you need help, I'm always here. If you need a friend, my inbox is always open. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope that this helped. And yeah, this has been a real pleasure for me. And I look forward to seeing you guys or talking to you guys soon. So